Now, on 105.9 FM and streaming worldwide on the WMAL app, O'Connor and Company.
It's 8:37. It's O'Connor and Company on a busy Monday morning. Thanks for joining us. It's Larry O'Connor with Julie Gunlock coming up, the Chris Plant Show in 30 minutes. But right now, we're joined by the chairman of the D.C. Police Union, Greggory Pemberton. Good morning, Mr. Pemberton. Good to talk with you.
Good morning, Larry, Julie. Great to be with you.
Maybe you can help me make sense of this story. There seems to be two different narratives here. There's a D.C. police commander who's now been suspended. He's accused of changing crime statistics. Yet at the same time, we're also learning that this could be, I guess, a retaliation from his supervisors because he was blowing the whistle on them for, it looks like it's retaliation against this guy because a week after he filed an equal employment opportunity complaint against the hierarchy at MPD, and his wife was put on the midnight shift. What's going on with MPD?
Well, in typical MPD fashion, it is quite complicated. Let me see if I can break it down for you. First of all, the police department last year reported a 35% drop in violent crime, and now this year they're reporting another 25% drop in violent crime through the end of June. And that just does not line up with the reality that rank and file officers are seeing on the street. Crime continues to be ubiquitous, and we're flying around from call to call, stabbings, shootings, carjackings, you name it. So for the chief of police and other elected officials to be taking all these victory laps doesn't seem to jibe with what we're really seeing in the city. And I think citizens feel that as well. What's going on with this commander is that we learned that his police powers were revoked, and he is now under investigation for going into police databases and changing crime stats. And specifically what he was doing, allegedly, was changing felony classifications down to misdemeanors so that they could keep these violent crime stats continuing to drop. Now, where the other part of the story comes in is that my suspicion is that he's likely not the only person that was doing that, because we see this in all 7 of our police districts. And frankly, I've known this commander for some time, and he's not the kind of guy that would go in surreptitiously and manipulate data. He's a stand-up guy, and he's one of the command staff officials that our members respect and look up to. So I think what's happening is he did, in fact, file a complaint regarding the way that he and his wife, who's also a captain on the department, were treated in another matter. And so what potentially is happening is that the department is using this behavior as a way to retaliate. So there's a lot going on in this story, but I think the takeaway for us is that this concept that, quote unquote, crime is down is likely just a farce, and that the police department is finding ways to manipulate this data so they can continue to report that the city is getting safer when in fact it's not. And frankly, I think we have to get to the bottom of that.
Yeah. Well, we do have to get to the bottom of it, and obviously this is bigger than one police officer, commander altering, supposedly, or he's accused of altering data, or, I know that's still under investigation. But obviously, if that is happening, and we've seen it in other major cities in the U.S., this is because of it seems like they are being pressured to do this by city officials. And again, not just in Washington, D.C., but all over the country. What is that culture like within police departments? Do they get a great deal of pressure from largely Democrat politicians who want to make it look like crime has gone down?
Well, you're absolutely right. So in all of these blue cities, going back to 2020, they all advanced all of this anti-police legislation that hamstrung cops and made it impossible for them to do their job, exposed them to all this liability, even when they do their job correctly, demonized them, besmirched them in every way that it could. And now all of those cities have had this mass exodus of police officers, and their staffing levels have plummeted. It's impossible to hire people in those cities for these very reasons. And as a result, guess what? Surprise, crime has shot up. So the citizens in those cities basically saw that, hey, look, this stuff didn't work, and then they began to put pressure on their elected officials to try to undo those things. Some cities have responded, others have not, and I think the ones that have not are still facing that pressure. So rather than repeal their policies or admit that they were wrong, it's a lot easier to just manipulate the data. And I think this is going on in a lot of major cities where they're trying to make it look like crime isn't what it really is, so they can avoid their tougher question, which is that the policies they advanced were misguided and wrong.
How does this affect your rank and file, though? Because if the numbers are being skewed here to make it look like crime is down, then there may be this sense of complacency amongst the district council or amongst the citizens that, oh, okay, well, then the cops don't need the resources we thought they need. They seem to be doing fine with the budget they've got and with the staffing they've got. But, I mean, notoriously, D.C. police have been understaffed for several years now, and that hasn't changed, has it?
No, not. And as a matter of fact, our authorized strength is 4,000. The report that came out on staffing in July shows we have 3,185, so more than 800 vacancies on the Metropolitan Police Department for sworn personnel. And officers are having to work 2 million hours of mandatory overtime to make up for that gap, which is just exacerbating the situation because these officers can go anywhere and get a job once they have a few years experience with the MPD, and they don't want to be treated this way. But to your point about these crime stats, you're absolutely right. This is a disservice to the officers, but more importantly, it's a disservice to the citizens. If we're not taking reports and following up on reports that are commensurate with what the crime is, then not only are we letting those citizens down, but we're letting those criminals off the hook. We're not going after them. We're not arresting them. We're not charging them with the same offenses that we know they committed, which means that you're letting these victims down. So once again, it's a way for the city council and other elected officials to go criminals first, victims last, and make sure that they don't have to be held accountable for these bad decisions.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there, Greg, but thanks for joining us as always. And this is certainly, we'll follow this story. It just broke over the weekend, and it certainly will continue to have our attention as the days develop and we get more facts on it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
It's 8:43.